Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. We are going to be covering everything we're talking about today on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. And it really does look like the March lion is not waiting until March 1st. Nature does not usually follow the calendars exactly, but we have stormy conditions developing across the country, and in some places, it's going to lead to some fairly extreme weather. We're going to start in California, where we have winter storm watches up for the southern half of Oregon and the Sierra Nevadas and mountains in California, as well as the mountains in northwest California. And we bring this up because this is going to be a powerful storm that's dropping down from Alaska and is going to produce some very big snow amounts. So we're talking areas in the Sierra Nevadas that are going to get up to 12 feet of snow. That is what's being forecast. This is starting Thursday and lasting probably through the weekend. And this is going to be a bit of a powerhouse here. And the heavy snows extend up the mountains, and we also see them up in the mountains of northwestern California. Heavy rains will be occurring up and down the coast. So we have that. We have winter storm warnings that are up in areas around the west. It's not completely widespread here, but we're looking in places like central Utah from north to south, also the western half of Colorado. We've got winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories from southeast Montana and northeast Wyoming, northeastward into northwestern Minnesota. We are also beginning to see the first wind advisories up for the Mississippi Valley and parts of the Tennessee Valley and Deep South. I expect to see more wind advisories going up in the eastern part of the United States in the next 24 hours or so. We've have high wind watches up for much of western and central New York, extending eastward into the upper Hudson Valley and over into western Massachusetts, also for parts of coastal Maine. And I would expect to see more wind advisories and potentially high wind warnings there. We've got high wind warnings and wind advisories across the Southwest. It's just a very, very busy weather pattern, even though it's very much unwinter-like in the eastern part of the United States. The way the pattern has shaped up, it's all going to be in the west. And we're starting to see, whenever you see isobars like this that start getting close together, it's kind of telling you that the winds are going to be picking up. They're going to tighten some more as low pressure develops in the lower Great Lakes. And we also have very cold air, believe it or not, with temperatures in the single digits and below zero readings from the northern plains extending up into Canada. And this is the first push of Arctic air that we've seen in a while. And it's, of course, interacting with extremely warm air. We had highs in the 90s yesterday across Texas, so we're going to have widespread 80s today throughout parts of the lower Ohio and Tennessee Valley and points westward ahead of this next cold front. So needless to say, we've got severe weather risks to worry about. And looking at the satellite this morning, we've got an area of showers and thunderstorms that's running ahead of the warm air that's pushing eastward. And you see the clouds increasing, a bright white cloud cover bursting across parts of Kentucky and southern Ohio and West Virginia. We also see that sub-Pacific subtropical jet streaming northeastward from the Pacific Ocean across Baja California into the southwest. So anytime we see that, we know that that's a sign that something sizable is coming. As far as the storm system is concerned, when it gets into the eastern part of the United States, I don't expect it to be extraordinary by any means. We're going to be dealing with some gusty winds. We're going to be dealing with some heavy rains, but it's not going to cause. I don't think it's going to cause serious issues for the east. Now, on the radar this morning, seeing rain developing in Kentucky and Tennessee down into Georgia. This is going to gradually expand up to the northeast. At least for now, the raiders are quiet from Maine down into Virginia. So we've got some time today before the rains arrive later this afternoon. Storm Prediction Center has let me just refresh this really quick just in case they updated it, which they just did. A fairly large area of slight risk from the lower Great Lakes down into the lower Ohio Valley and west to the Mississippi River. Marginal risk pushing into western Pennsylvania, and this comes with an elevated tornado risk of 2 to as much as 5% in Illinois, Indiana, western Ohio, and northwestern Kentucky. And as that front nears the East Coast tomorrow, a smaller area of marginal risk from northeastern Kentucky on up through West Virginia and southeastern Ohio. We might see this get expanded just a little bit. And at least for now, that comes with a small area, 2% tornado risk from northeastern Kentucky on up into western West Virginia and southeast Ohio. As far as precipitation is concerned, we're in terms of melted precip, we're looking at 3/4 of an inch to an inch up and down the East Coast over the next 7 days, a bit more in southeastern Maine, quite a bit more in the Gulf states, where we're seeing an inch and a half to as much as 3 inches being forecast over the next 7 from Mississippi to North Georgia. And then out in the west for the next 7 days, just an absolute pounding. We're talking 5 to 10 inches of rain up along the coasts of Washington, Oregon, and northwestern California. And in the mountains, in the Cascades and the Sierra Nevadas, as we said, the snow will be measured in many feet. Also, heavy snow possible in the northern Rockies, where we're seeing areas of 2 to 3 inches of melted precip over the next 7 days. So, as far as how this plays out in the eastern part of the United States, as we said, the gradient is going to get tight. We see the low there in Minnesota heading up into Wisconsin. Not much to that at the moment. You got some snow moving through North Dakota and Minnesota, and also parts of South Dakota and Nebraska in the east. You see the rain approaching. This is at 2 o'clock Tuesday, and then by this evening, there'll be some downpours, maybe even a rumble or two of thunder as that goes by. That low is going to reform in the lower Great Lakes and strengthen during the day on Wednesday, and then run up to the northeast. So we'll have showery rains, gusty winds, and maybe a thunderstorm or two as the cold front comes through tomorrow night. And that's going to be followed by a quick shot of cold air for Thursday into Friday. Nothing overly cold, but you'll notice the difference from going from 60s down to temperatures generally in the upper 30s and low 40s on Thursday, and just into the 40s on Friday. Meanwhile, out in the west, you see the energy that's dropping southward late. This is on Thursday, with heavy snows in that dark blue zone that eventually just take over into California. I'm going to just switch maps here to give you a better view of the total precip that's going to be produced. And I'll roll it back. There's your low in the east that moves out. Here comes the energy from Alaska dropping down the west coast of California. You see that area of very dark blue. That is very heavy snow. And this is taking us through Friday, through Saturday, and even into Sunday. The heavy snow continues. And then we've got another storm system that we'll probably deal with next week. That'll be similar to this. And in between, here in the eastern part of the United States, for Friday night and Saturday, we've got a weak system coming out of the Gulf states that'll move offshore. It'll probably mean for some rain Friday night into early Saturday morning, but I think the rest of the weekend should be mostly okay. So, of course, we'll discuss this all in great detail tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, and that's at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time.